Hey, welcome to Tesla Shorts Time Daily, episode 422, coming to you from Vancouver. It's April 1st, 2026. There's a lot to cover in Tesla land today, so let's jump right in. Here's what's making news in the Tesla world right now. Let's start with the software and full self-driving business model, because this feels like the part of Tesla that keeps getting more interesting the longer you sit with it. Every Tesla that rolls off the line comes with the full suite of advanced hardware already paid for up front. That inference computer, the cameras, the sensors, all built into the sticker price of the vehicle. But the real revenue story for Tesla actually begins once that car is out on the road and starts living its life. Owners who opt in allow their cars to quietly collect vision data during every drive, and that data gets anonymized and beamed back to Tesla's training cluster. From there, it feeds directly into training the neural nets that power everything from basic autopilot to the more advanced full self-driving features. The beauty of it is the more Teslas that are out there driving real roads in real weather with real human drivers, the more miles Tesla sees, and the faster those neural nets get smarter. It's a classic data flywheel that strengthens with scale, and it's hard to overstate how much of an advantage that creates over time. Tesla really has two clear paths to make money from all this software capability. The first is straightforward. Customers can buy full self-driving as a one-time purchase or subscribe month to month, and that delivers very high margin revenue on an ever-growing installed base of cars. The second bigger vision is the robo-taxi network, where Tesla could take something like a 20 to 30% cut of every ride without ever having to own or maintain the actual fleet. Right now, full self-driving still needs human supervision, so unsupervised autonomy is the real unlock that could change the lifetime value of every vehicle dramatically. The data flywheel looks impressive when you sketch it out on paper, but it only works if the technology actually crosses the finish line, which brings us to what's still holding things back. Today's full self-driving is legitimately impressive in a lot of everyday situations. It handles city streets, highway merging, and complex intersections better than it did even a year ago. Yet it still requires that human supervisor in the driver's seat, which means it's nowhere near ready for empty cars rolling around, picking up strangers in unsupervised operation. Getting regulatory approval isn't just about hitting a benchmark once or twice. Regulators want overwhelming safety data showing the system is clearly and consistently safer than the average human driver across many different geographies, weather conditions, and road types. That kind of proof takes serious time and a massive number of real-world miles before anyone feels comfortable signing off. Economically, the bar is set at being safer than a human by a meaningful margin, because once you clear that hurdle, the marginal cost of a robo-taxi ride collapses. Now, there's no driver to pay, no shift changes, no fatigue. Beyond the technical and regulatory side, there are real human barriers too. Customer trust is huge, and there's a genuine psychological hurdle for many people when it comes to climbing into a completely empty vehicle with no one behind the wheel. Even if the safety numbers look excellent on paper, plenty of folks will need to actually feel safe before they're willing to try it. In some ways, that psychological barrier might prove harder to clear than the technical one, and Tesla will have to navigate both at the same time. Still, the upside for Tesla feels unique because of how these cars were engineered from the start, and that's worth digging into next. The cars being sold right now with today's hardware are essentially future revenue generators sitting in people's driveways. Even if a buyer chooses not to purchase full self-driving on day one, the vehicle still leaves the factory with all the necessary sensors and compute already installed. That means a software update years down the road that finally unlocks unsupervised autonomy could suddenly make that older car significantly more valuable, both to the owner and to Tesla's broader network. Hardware 4 and its equivalents were designed with this long-term thinking in mind, positioning today's vehicles as potential long-term assets rather than depreciating machines. It's a pretty rare situation in the car world where an older vehicle can actually appreciate in capability instead of steadily losing value over time. The same number of cars sold today can generate dramatically more lifetime revenue if unsupervised autonomy arrives at meaningful scale. This quietly shifts Tesla's business away from the traditional one-time vehicle sale model towards something that starts to look more like a high-margin recurring tech platform. It's a fundamentally different way of thinking about what a car actually is, and it's one of the reasons so many people stay fascinated with what Tesla is trying to build. Of course, none of this exists in isolation, and Tesla still has to prove it can deliver against some pretty steep challenges. Tesla's decision to go pure vision, relying on cameras and neural nets instead of layering in radar or LiDAR, is still viewed as risky by a fair number of observers in the industry. At the same time, it offers a clear cost advantage if they can make it work because there are no expensive additional sensors that need calibration or replacement over the life of the car. The regulatory picture is complicated too, varying significantly from country to country and even from state to state within the same country, which means Tesla has to prove its system market by market with the right kind of data. Competition remains intense, with other automakers and tech companies pursuing approaches that almost always include additional sensors for what they see as necessary redundancy. Those competitors are making progress too, so Tesla can't afford to stand still. All of this means real progress has to be demonstrated across wildly different driving conditions and regulatory jurisdictions before the big unlocks can happen. So in the quarters ahead, there are a few specific things I think are worth keeping a close eye on. One of the most telling metrics will be how quickly the miles per intervention number improves on the latest versions of full self-driving. Faster gains, there would be a strong signal that the system is steadily moving closer to the safety threshold regulators are looking for. Any regulatory approval announcements in key markets like California, Texas, or China will also carry a lot of weight because those would open meaningful new revenue opportunities almost immediately. It'll be interesting to see whether Tesla starts breaking out actual software revenue per vehicle more clearly in future earnings calls, moving beyond the current deferred revenue accounting approach they use now. Progress on the next generation of inference hardware and how it improves both cost and performance will matter a lot too. Cheaper, more powerful computers in the cars would make the whole economic model even more attractive from a margin standpoint. These are the kinds of signals that will help us understand how quickly this software business can actually scale in the real world. There's still a noticeable gap between the promise we keep hearing and the current reality of unsupervised operation. Full self-driving has shown real flashes of capability both in carefully staged demonstrations and in day-to-day driving for owners who use it regularly. However, it hasn't yet reached the point where regulators feel comfortable removing the human supervisor entirely from the equation. The data requirements for that kind of approval are substantial, and they have to hold up across widely varying conditions, from snowy Canadian winters to scorching desert highways. Some critics continue to argue that the pure vision approach still lacks the kind of redundancy that other sensor-heavy systems provide. Tesla's position has always been that the neural net approach, trained on enough real-world data, will ultimately overcome those concerns. The exact timeline for crossing that final threshold remains uncertain, and anyone who tells you they know for sure is probably overconfident. Yet the hardware already deployed across thousands and thousands of vehicles gives Tesla an installed base advantage that no competitor can easily copy or catch up to anytime soon. At its core, this whole strategy comes back to how Tesla thinks about the value of a vehicle over its entire lifetime. Most traditional car companies sell you the vehicle and the relationship largely ends once you drive it off the lot. Tesla took a different path from the beginning, designing their cars with future software capabilities already built in from day one. The inference computer and the camera suite were included because the company believed they would unlock entirely new uses and revenue streams years later. This forward-looking approach turns every single sale into a potential platform for recurring revenue rather than a one-and-done transaction. It represents a fundamentally different way of thinking about automotive economics compared to how the industry has operated for decades. The big bet is that continued software improvements will keep adding meaningful value long after the original purchase date. If that bet ultimately pays off, the lifetime revenue per vehicle could look very different from anything we've seen in the traditional car business. Before we wrap up, it's worth keeping an eye on any early signs of regulatory movement in those key markets and continued improvement in the miles per intervention metric. Those two things together will tell us a lot about the pace of progress. That's your Tesla news for today. TSLA closed at $371.75, up $19.62 or 5.6%. If you found this useful, a rating or review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify really helps new listeners find the show. You can also find us on X at Tesla Shorts Time. I'm Patrick in Vancouver. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you tomorrow. This podcast is curated by Patrick but generated using AI voice synthesis of my voice using ElevenLabs. The primary reason to do this is I unfortunately don't have the time to be consistent with generating all the content and wanted to focus on creating consistent and regular episodes for all the themes that I enjoy, and I hope others do as well.